My girlfriend Vanessa gave me the ultimatum last month right in the middle of our living room. She stood there, arms crossed with a look of absolute conviction. My dog Buster, a 7-year-old golden retriever I've had since he was a pup, was asleep at my feet. He must have sensed the tension because he let out a little sigh in his sleep. "I can't do this anymore, Mark," she said, her voice sharp. "I'm sneezing all the time. My eyes are itchy and I'm finding his hair on everything. It's disgusting." She pointed a dramatic finger at the sleeping dog. "You have to sell him. I'm allergic and it's me or him. Here's the thing about the allergy. It was new. For the first year and a half we were together, there was no allergy. She loved Buster. Or at least she acted like she did. The walks in the park, the Instagram photos with him, the cuddles on the couch, it was all perfect. Then her sister Megan moved back to town 6 months ago. Megan is one of those people who thinks animals belong on a farm, not in a city apartment. Suddenly, every time Vanessa came back from a sister's night out, the allergy would flare up. A sniffle here, a complaint about dog hair there. It started small, but it grew into this huge unsolvable problem that was apparently ruining her life. I knew this wasn't about an allergy. It was about control. It was about Megan getting in her head, telling her that a serious, sophisticated couple doesn't have a big shedding dog in their 2-bedroom apartment. I'd had Buster for years before I even met Vanessa. He was there for me through a layoff, a bad breakup, and the loss of my dad. He wasn't a pet, it was family. Selling him was like asking me to sell a younger brother. I looked from her furious face down to Buster, who was now twitching, probably dreaming of chasing squirrels. I knew arguing was a trap. If I fought her, I was the bad guy who didn't care about her health. If I refused, I was the guy who chose a dog over her. She had built the perfect argument where she was the victim no matter what. So, I took a different route. I stood up, walked over to her, and put my hands on her shoulders. I looked her right in the eyes with all the sincerity I could fake and said, "You're right. I'm so sorry I let it get this bad. You're my priority." The change was instant. The anger melted away, replaced by a triumphant, relieved smile. She hugged me tightly. "Oh, thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand. It's for the best. You'll see. We can finally have a clean adult apartment." I just hugged her back, patting her on the back while staring over her shoulder at Buster. An ice-cold plan was already forming in my head. My priority wasn't her. My priority was the loyal, loving creature who had been by my side for 7 years, and I was about to give him the life he deserved. The next morning, while she was at her yoga class, I made my first call. It wasn't to an animal shelter or some rescue group. It was to a real estate agent, a guy named Phil, who had helped my friend sell his place last year. I told him I wanted to list my apartment for sale, effective immediately. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Everything okay, man?" Phil asked. "I thought you loved that place." "Just time for a change," I said. "Need to move fast." The apartment was mine. I bought it years before I met Vanessa. She moved in about a year ago. She wasn't on the deed or the mortgage, but she paid half the utilities and for the groceries. Legally, she was a tenant with no formal lease, which made things complicated, but not impossible. The first step to solving the dog problem was liquidating the asset she thought we were building a future in. While Phil was getting the listing paperwork ready, I made my second move. I went online and started looking at houses for sale in the suburbs, about a 40-minute drive outside the city. My search filter had only one mandatory requirement, a huge backyard. I spent 2 hours scrolling through listings, my heart starting to pound with a strange mix of anger and excitement. I found 3 properties that looked promising. When Vanessa got home, I was ready with the next phase of my plan. I sat her down on the couch. "Okay, so I've been thinking about the whole situation." I started trying to sound concerned. "And you being my priority means making some big changes. I called a realtor this morning. I'm selling the apartment." Her jaw dropped. "You're what? Why?" "You love this place. We love this place." "I know," I said, putting my hand on her knee. "But it's too big for us without Buster. It's a constant reminder, and frankly, the maintenance fees are high. If we sell now, we can get a smaller, more manageable place. Something new with no dog memories. A fresh start for us." I could see the gears turning in her head. She didn't like the idea of moving, but the logic I presented was twisted just enough to appeal to her narrative. A fresh start in a clean adult apartment was exactly what she wanted. "Okay," she said slowly. "Okay, I see what you mean. It's a big step, but if it helps, what about Buster? Have you listed him yet?" "I'm working on it." I lied smoothly. "I want to find him the perfect home. It's the least I can do. It's going to take some time to do it right." This bought me time and made me look like the sad, responsible pet owner. She bought it completely. The for sale sign went up 2 days later. That same evening, her sister Megan called me. I saw her name on the caller ID and let it go to voicemail. The message was dripping with fake sympathy. "Mark, Hi, it's Megan. Vanessa told me about the apartment, and I just think it's so brave of you to make such a big sacrifice for her. I know how much you love that mangy dog, but Vanessa's health has to come first. You're finally doing the right thing. The condescension was so thick I could feel it through the phone. I saved that voicemail. Over the next 2 weeks, our lives were a circus of real estate showings. We had to keep the place spotless, and I had to board Buster at a friend's place every time Phil brought a potential buyer over. Vanessa was a saint through it all. Of course, she'd tell the prospective buyers how much she loved the apartment, but that they were downsizing. Meanwhile, I was secretly visiting the houses I'd found online. The third one I saw was perfect. It was a modest 3-bedroom, but it had a massive fenced-in backyard with a huge oak tree. I could already picture Buster running free back there. I put in an offer using my personal savings for the down payment. Money Vanessa didn't know I had. My offer was accepted the next day. I was now the owner of a new home she had no idea existed. The financial part was next. I told Vanessa that to make the move simpler, we should close our Czar joint checking account and operate out of our own accounts until we found a new place. I framed it as a way to make the accounting easier for the sale. Once we sell this place, I told her, we'll have a big chunk of money to start fresh. We can open a new joint account then. She agreed without question. She was so focused on the end goal, a new dog-free life, that she didn't pay attention to the details. She was already online shopping for new furniture for our hypothetical small chic apartment. She even created a shared photo album of places she liked. All of them tiny, sterile-looking condos with strict no-pets policies. Every time she showed me one, I'd nod and say, "Looks great, honey. Very clean." The first real crack in her fantasy appeared about a week before the closing date on my apartment. We were having dinner with her parents, and her mother was going on and on about how proud she was of me for putting Vanessa first. Her dad, a quiet guy who usually just stayed out of things, actually looked at me with a bit of pity. Then Megan, who was also there, decided to turn the screws. "So, have you found a new home for Buster yet?" she asked, a smug little smile on her face. "I have a friend who lives on a farm. I'm sure they could use a good guard dog." The idea of Buster, my friendly, goofy retriever who loves people, being a guard dog on some random farm made my blood run cold. But I kept my cool. "I'm still interviewing potential families," I said. "I want to make sure he goes to the right place." Vanessa jumped in, siding with her sister. "Mark, you're dragging this out. It's like you don't want to let him go. Megan's idea is perfect. Just get it over with." The pressure was on. For the first time, my calm facade almost broke. To see her so callously discuss getting rid of him after all those years she pretended to love him was infuriating. I just said, "I'll handle it," in a tone that shut down the conversation. But the incident solidified my resolve. They wouldn't just be consequences for Vanessa. Megan had earned a special front row seat. The open house for my apartment was scheduled for the final Sunday before the sale closed. Phil had printed up these glossy flyers to hand out. They had pictures of the apartment, the asking price, all the usual stuff. But at the bottom, in small print, was a little marketing blurb he liked to use. "Seller is highly motivated and has already secured their next home at 125 Oakwood Lane." I saw the flyer on the kitchen counter on Saturday morning. I knew it was only a matter of time. That afternoon, I started moving my personal things, clothes, books, computer over to the new house in my car. I took Buster with me. I let him out in the backyard for the first time, and he went crazy, running in huge, joyful circles, rolling in the grass. Watching him, I knew I had made the right decision. I spent the night there on an air mattress on the floor with Buster curled up beside me. It was the most peaceful I'd felt in months. The next morning, the morning of the open house, my phone exploded. It was a string of frantic texts from Vanessa. "What is 125 Oakwood Lane?" I looked it up. It's a house, marked with a huge backyard. "What did you do?" Then a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. It was Megan, and she was screaming, "You psychopath. What have you done?" "Vanessa is a wreck. You bought a house without her for that stupid dog." I just stayed silent, letting her yell. Then I heard Vanessa in the background sobbing hysterically. He tricked me. He lied to me. Finally, Megan ran out of steam. I said calmly, "The open house is starting in an hour. I'd appreciate it if you and Vanessa collected her things before the first viewers arrive. I've left some boxes in the living room for you. We're coming over there." She shrieked, "To your new house. You can't just kick her out." "Actually, I can," I said. "Her name isn't on the deed to the old place, and it certainly isn't on the deed to the new one. The apartment is about to be sold. She needs a place to live. That's her problem to solve now." They showed up at the apartment 20 minutes later, just as I was leaving with the last of my things. It was even more chaotic than I imagined. Phil, my realtor, was just setting up his sign when they pulled up, screeching to a halt. Vanessa ran out of the car, face blotchy and swollen, and tried to block me from getting into my own car. Megan got right in Phil's face, accusing him of being part of my sick scheme. "How could you?" Vanessa whispered. Her voice as a nicelle-looking couple who were early for the showing watched from the sidewalk. "You told me I was your priority." "I did," I replied, my voice steady and loud enough for the onlookers to hear. "And I prioritized you. I prioritized getting you out of my life and out of Buster's life. It was the most important thing I had to do." I looked at Megan, who was still yelling at my poor realtor. "And you should really learn to stay out of other people's relationships." I got in my car and drove away, leaving them standing on the sidewalk as the first family of prospective buyers walked up the path for the open house. Phil called me an hour later. He said they made such a scene that he had to threaten to call the police for trespassing before they finally left. He also said the story of the crazy ex and her sister actually made the buyers more sympathetic towards me, and he got 2 offers over the asking price. I told him to take the highest one. The aftermath was a predictable storm of entitlement. Vanessa and Megan immediately launched a smear campaign on social media. There were vague posts about being betrayed by a monster and how I had tricked a sick, allergic woman into homelessness. They used old, flattering photos of me and Vanessa, painting a picture of a perfect relationship I had maliciously destroyed. A few of our mutual friends took her side, sending me angry messages. I didn't engage. Instead, I made one single public post on my own page. It was a picture of Buster running happily in his new huge backyard. The caption was simple: "Keeping my real priorities safe and happy. Some things are not for sale." Then I attached an audio file. It was the voicemail Megan had left me, the one where she condescendingly praised me for getting rid of my main dog so Vanessa could be healthy. The contrast between her fake concern in the voicemail and her current narrative of me being a monster was impossible to ignore. That post did exactly what I wanted it to. The friends who had been on the fence suddenly went silent. A couple of them even messaged me to apologize, saying they hadn't known the full story. The social media war was over before it really began. Facts, it turns out, are stubborn things. The next escalation came from their parents. Their mother called me crying, begging me to do the right thing and take Vanessa back, or at least give her half the money from the apartment sale. I calmly explained that Vanessa had contributed nothing to the down payment or the mortgage, and that legally the proceeds were mine. I suggested that if Vanessa needed a place to live, perhaps she could move back home. There was a shocked silence on the other end of the line, followed by a dial tone. Vanessa did end up moving in with Megan into her tiny one-bedroom apartment. I heard from a friend that it was a nightmare. 2 high-maintenance sisters in a confined space with Megan, apparently discovering that Vanessa was not a very considerate roommate. Megan's pristine adult apartment was suddenly cluttered with Vanessa's things, and Megan was not happy about it. The final desperate move came a few weeks later. I was served with a legal letter. It was a demand for $50,000 for emotional distress and for Vanessa's financial investment in the shared domestic partnership. It was full of legal-sounding nonsense that was clearly written by Megan after watching a few legal dramas on TV. They were hoping the threat of a lawsuit would scare me into paying them off. I hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Sarah. She laughed when she read the letter. We drafted a response. It was simple. It included a copy of the apartment's deed, showing I was the sole owner. It included bank statements showing I had paid 100% of the mortgage, and that Vanessa's contributions were limited to shared utilities, essentially making her a month-to-month tenant. It also included a formal counter-threat. We stated that the social media posts constituted defamation, and that the false legal claims were frivolous. If they proceeded, we would countersue for legal fees and damages to my reputation. And for the finishing touch, we attached a transcript of Megan's voicemail, highlighting her admission that she was actively encouraging Vanessa to get rid of my dog. We never heard from their lawyer again. The threat stopped. The social media posts were deleted. Silence. The last I heard, Vanessa was still living with Megan, and they were constantly fighting. Vanessa had to get a second job to afford her share of the rent. Megan was apparently complaining to anyone who would listen that Vanessa had ruined her life. The perfect, sophisticated sisterly alliance had crumbled under the weight of actual responsibility. I'm writing this from my new living room. The back door is open and a cool evening breeze is coming in. I can hear Buster outside chasing a firefly in the dusk. The house is quiet. It's peaceful. She gave me an ultimatum, a choice between her and my best friend. In the end, I made sure she got exactly what she deserved, a life without either of us. I blocked her number and went back to living my life.